Hello, Mark Rugen here for SA International, the makers of Flexi and many other great products. And we welcome you to our webinar. This is a recording of a webinar that we did recently. And our topic for this webinar is when should you use Flexi rather than Illustrator? We're going to find out more about these two great design programs and what features each has that should be used in certain workflows. And I think you're going to see, I'll just give you a sneak preview here, a comment. Flexi is just going to outperform Illustrator from a workflow standpoint. We need to start thinking about design and production together in your shop, not just design. And I think you'll agree at the end that Flexi is superior here. Let's find out why. There's some features in Flexi, especially when it comes to vinyl cutting, faster contour cut design. That's a great feature. You can design contour cuts within Illustrator, but it's multiple steps and you have to use layers and a number of other tricks. So you're going to see a demonstration of this in just a moment. From importing files, Flexi can actually import Adobe files. So if you are going to use Illustrator, which is perfectly fine, a lot of shops have it and probably should, it will import those Adobe files as well as the standard Windows formats. Illustrator, of course, will import all the Windows standard formats as well. When it comes with editing features, Flexi was designed to edit both vectors and bitmaps. It has the tools for editing both. Now, in the Illustrator side, to edit bitmaps, you're probably going to want to use Photoshop rather than Illustrator. That's very limited in terms of what you can do with bitmaps. It's primarily a vector editing program. Here's an interesting thing. Number 4. A maximum design size or design space in Flexi is 333 feet. Now, I think that's, 3 stories, that's pretty big. And I think that 33 stories actually is pretty big. I think you're going to be fine with that. The maximum design space size in Illustrator, 18.9 feet. Now, that's good for most projects in a shop, but if you're going to go bigger than that, say 20 feet, you're going to do a 20-foot banner, kind of out of luck there. You're going to have to do some tricks to get that to work. Also, you must include the production side. So think about this. On the Flexi product, the Pro version comes with the Production Manager, which has all the drivers for cutters, printers, and other kinds of devices. In the case of Illustrator, you're going to have to purchase a cut or print software or both separately. Sometimes you'll get those free with your printer like VersaWorks or something, and sometimes you'll get maybe something from GraphTech. It's a cut software. Perfectly fine to use those, but you're going to have those, and that's a separate part of Illustrator. It doesn't come with it. All the profiles you need for printing are included with Flexi, and it can use most profiles, so it's very easy to find. In fact, the cloud features of Flexi allow you to find those profiles easily. There are no output profiles for Illustrator. As we said, it's a design program. It's going to depend on the purchase that you make after Illustrator to get those profiles. And this is a very important one, the last one, number 7. In the case of Flexi, you can buy the program, you can upgrade the one you already have, or you can subscribe. It is your choice. You can do either one of those. In Illustrator's case, as of probably about a year ago, you can only subscribe. You have no choice in the matter. So both these programs are excellent design programs, and they are very widespread. Obviously, there's a huge design market using Illustrator. But think about workflow as we go through our presentation here. The original purpose of Illustrator, it was designed back in about 1986. It was really designed to be a graphic design, font, and logo development application, vector-based. It was primarily for vector design. It has a little bit of bitmap editing, but not very much. In Flexi's case, in 1989, it was designed to create both vector and bitmap images that would eventually be sent to vinyl cutters or wide format printers. So it was designed for not just creating projects, but actually outputting those to a machine, and that's very important. when you think about workflow, it's obvious the fastest way that we want in our shop is to get from point A to point B in a straight line as fast as possible. I think with Illustrator, you're going to find you have to take steps and you kind of zigzag around. You can get to point B, but it just takes a little bit more effort and a little longer, and that can be an issue when it comes to production in our shops. So let's talk about some of these features. We're going to talk about contour cutting first. I think the obvious choice is going to be Flexi here. Why? There are predefined spot colors for contour cutting. You have to actually have a predefined spot color that's defined as cut contour and perf cut contour to get the job done. That's the way that the RIP software understands it. There are options for turning on and off holes. There are welding options that automatically happen when contours overlap. You can cut multiple contour cut lines and perf lines. In other words, it's designed for this project. Illustrator is not. You'll see in just a moment here, because what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate creating contour cuts in both programs, and this will give you a very good idea about why Flexi is the choice to make here. Okay, so let's get that started. Let's start with Illustrator. Now, by the way, the first thing I had to do in Illustrator, and what you'll need to do if you're going to use it for contour cutting, is you'll have to create a color swatch down here. So you have to actually create this swatch color here that's named contour cut. You'll have to make one that's called perf cut. You have to create this swatch table here, and that's a separate subject, but it is something you have to do. There's lots of stuff online to show you how to do that. Let's start with a simple file. I'm just going to click on new here, and what we're going to do is we're going to make just a little text here. We're going to type in contour cutting, and I'm just going to resize that. Okay, now here's the first thing. This is actual text, and Illustrator sees it as text. One of the things that we have to be careful about here is that if I go to my object and I say I want to put a path around that, I can't actually do that unless the text is converted to outlines. So to do that, I have to right click on it, create outlines from it, and then it becomes outlines. Now I can go to my object and path and actually define an offset path with this. So I can tell it how much I want, how I want to round it, and so forth. It's entirely up to me. Well, I do like the preview, kind of shows you what's going to happen and what it's going to look like. I'll go ahead and accept that and click OK. I'm actually going to go ahead and change that into just a stroke, and I want to define that stroke as my perf cut line there. So I have my perf cuts here, but you can see they're overlapping, and I need to take care of that as well. Well, a couple of things have to happen here. You can certainly select within. I mean, I can try to select just that perf line there, right? And then I'm going to go to my Pathfinder. And by the way, Pathfinder is a way that you can weld things together and so forth. I'm going to weld those together. Okay, no problem there, right? So again, I'm going to select within here, and I'm going to go Pathfinder and just weld those together, right? Now you notice it created it with holes anyway. So if I want to get rid of that, I got to select it and then just delete it, right? One at a time here. Or I got to use some other methods. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do to get rid of these holes. But the point is that you can see this is more work that I have to do, and it's not automated, and that's my point. It's multiple steps to get something done, right? Let's go on over to Flexi and let's do the same thing here. So I have Flexi on here, and I'm going to type in the same thing. Okay, again, resize this to whatever size you want, makes no difference whatsoever. In Flexi's case, I don't have to convert this to outlines. It's text. I can go to my effects menu, I can choose contour cut, and you notice here I can actually see a visual right away. And look, as the lines overlap, they're automatically welding together. And look, there's no holes in here because I have an option. I can just turn that on and off at will. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. It automatically is defining this as a contour cut line. In fact, I can say I want a contour cut line there, and then I can select it, go to my effects menu, go back to contour cut, and maybe this time I want to add like a rectangle around it, and I want to define it in some sort of pattern, and I even want to assign that as a perf cut, right? Click OK and apply that. So what I've done is I've got a contour cut with all those holes or non-holes, and then I've got a perf cut here, so I can cut that out, kind of like a business card, you know, that you get where you have little small perforations, and then you can just snap it open and hand it to your customer. Now that took seconds to do, just seconds, and all the options are still there. In fact, let me show you something here. If I go in here, I can highlight this lettering. Okay, and I go in here and I say I want to change that to something else. I'm going to change it to a different font style. It automatically does that. In fact, I can even go in here and say, okay, I want to take this contour cut line. Let's change that. Let's make it a little bigger, right? You can do any of those things automatically. I can come right in here and change that. The idea is that it really is an excellent way to work with contour cutting. It's basically, the workflow here is automatic. Also, when I want to, I can send it right to my VersaWorks. I can send it to Onyx. I can send it to all those other third-party RIP softwares if I want to, or I can send it right to Production Manager. You know, a couple of things you have to keep in mind. A contour cut's just going to cut around the letter. It's going to cut the vinyl and around the printed letters. The perf cut is going to go all the way through the vinyl, the adhesive, and the backing. So that's why I need that pattern. And I also need different pressures. Guess what? Flexi handles all that. It handles all that automatically. For doing that over in this side here, if I want to add a perf cut, I got to draw in my rectangle. Okay, I got to define that as a perf cut. And then I have to rely on my software, my RIP software, for the pattern here. Or I have to change this into a pattern, maybe a stroke that has a certain pattern. You know, there's lots of things I have to do, but the idea is that it's so much faster and easier in Flexi. And that's my point, and I want to make that clear. Okay, so let's close that one up, and let's do something a little different. I'm going to close the one in Flexi also. And let's go back to Illustrator again. How about we open a file up? I'm going to open a file here, and I've got a file. It's a JPEG, and it's a picture of this boy right here. Now, the first thing that happens is this opened up the file, and my artboard is too small for that particular file. So I'm just going to say, take my artboard and fit it to the image, and then Control-0 will allow me to see it, right? Now, I just want to demonstrate something here real quick. Let's say I needed this 600 inches tall for some reason, right? I'm going to go over here and say 600, and watch what happens. I'm limited to 227 inches, which is about 18 feet or so, 19 feet. I can't go any higher than that. So I'm kind of stuck here, right? So let's undo that. My point is that I just wanted to make sure you could see there are limitations in this program. Now, watch how complicated it is to just create a contour cut here. Now, some of you may have, you're experienced at Illustrator, you may have faster methods, but the point is, I know you're taking extra steps. Couple of things. I'm going to have to take this image and create a new layer, okay? Secondly, what I'm going to do is rename these layers just to keep them identified. I'm going to call this a cut line, and I'm going to call this one print, just so I know which one is which, right? Number one, got to do that. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my print line here, and on my cut line, I'm going to take this graphic, and I do like this. I'm going to trace it as a silhouette. Now, in this instance, I can trace it like this, right? And what it will do is it will actually trace this graphic with a silhouette looking around it. Now, I think that's great. If I had a complicated background, I literally would have to take my digitizer pen over here and follow and go around the edges of my graphic where I want to place that vector for a contour cut line. A lot of work. That's a lot of work. Next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and flatten the transparency. And basically that gives me just the outlines here. I'm going to go ahead and assign that a color. And I'm going to switch this over like this, make it a stroke outline here, right? Let's make sure we get it like a stroke. So there's my defined contour cut line there. So I'll turn on my print, and you can see, I'll just zoom up on here so you can see this a little better. You can see it's actually right on the edge of my graphic here. That's fine. I don't have any problem with that. But that's not what I want. I want to actually offset that. So I'm going to go ahead and take my graphic, my cut line here, and I'm going to go to path and choose to offset that. Let's select the path first of all. Sorry. Let's get that selected. There we go. And then let's do our path and then offset path. So I can define the amount here. I want to actually round the edges. I'm going to define it as maybe 1/4 inch or so. something like that. Again, what I like is a nice preview. Got to turn the preview on. And if I want it to be a contour cut, I got to make sure that I do contour cut for my stroke. Click OK on that, and that looks good. Okay, so that's what I've got, but I've got too many now, so I'm going to go into here and into here, and I'm going to turn off the original stroke line, and now I have my contour cut line around my graphic. No problems, you know, it looks fine. And then at that point, if I want to add a perf line, I kind of have to do this again, you know, or I have to select this and offset it again. I mean, you can see it's the number of steps involved here that I don't like. It's a great program, great for design, does a lot of cool things with these layers and so forth, a lot of good effects. It just takes too long to get to point B. And point B is where we make our money. That's where we're printing and cutting. That's where we make our money. Let me show you the same example in Flexi over here. First of all, if I click open, or if I just go, I think I have them in the recent files here. Yeah, there's my little boy right there. I just click it, and because I have 333 feet of space, I can make this any size I want, up to 330 feet, 3 feet. Goodness gracious, you know, it's ready to go. Now, if I just go to effects and contour cut line, it actually draws, and I'll go to contour, it actually draws a rectangle around it, and that's not what I want. You know, I want to go around the shape of the boy. So basically I have white bitmap in the way here. Nice thing is Flexi can edit bitmaps as well. Here's a cool feature: bitmap, make transparent. I can literally click on the graphic in the back. That's the white part right here, and I can change the tolerance or select multiple areas like inside here, wherever I want. Apply that. It makes that white hidden to Flexi, so that when I go to my effects menu and contour cut line, guess what? Boom, it's done. You know, I can change this to whatever I want, 0.25, right? And say okay, right? It's done. It's done. It was that fast. If I want the holes turned, I turn on holes and it'll turn the holes on or off, right? Here's another great feature. You know, if I grab this and I, you know, just grab the whole thing and I change the size of it, the contour cut line adjusts automatically. I didn't have to go back in and mess around with stuff. It's sticky. That is a wonderful feature. I am now ready to go to point B and make my money. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. That's the coolest stuff. That's the way it should work. So I really wanted to kind of make sure we covered that, to show you some of the features of those two programs. I'm going to go through these points again because I think they're very important. Number one, file formats. Choose Flexi. It imports most of the common file formats out there, as well as Illustrator files. So if you want to use both together, I think it's great, but you should stick to Flexi when you can. And it's compatible with Adobe Photoshop plugins. Let me go back here and show you this. You know, if I go back over here, and let's close up this file for a second, and then I open up, say something else, or well, you know what? Let me just show you here I'll just type in some text here. Okay, this is vector artwork. Imagine you're trying to do this in Photoshop, right? So you know, you're changing the font styles to something else, maybe something a little thicker, you're painting it and so forth. And then you want to apply some kind of special effect on here. Well, there are plugins for Illustrator, as well as, not as many as Photoshop, but as well as Photoshop, that you could use. Here's what you do in Flexi. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change this into a piece of bitmap artwork. I'm going to take my bitmap editing tools and just select my graphic like this. I'm going to go to bitmap, and I'm going to use the Photoshop plugins, and there's tons of them out there. You know, a really good one is eye candy. You can actually take this graphic and apply eye candy effects to it. Want to do something like that? Okay, click OK. So I'm working with bitmaps and vectors. Boom, done. Again, it's you know, why struggle? Why struggle with the workflow? If I try to do that back here in Photoshop and Illustrator, it's easier for me to open up in Photoshop and do it, or in Illustrator I got to go through a few more steps. It's just not the way it should be done. So you can use most files in Illustrator, but you have to rasterize the design to apply the Photoshop plugins, and it's very limited in terms of using special effects like that. Design limitations. As I mentioned just a moment ago, editing tools for both vector and bitmaps in Flexi. Very limited bitmap editing at all in Illustrator. It's a vector editing program primarily. Designing in full scale. Remember that? 4,000 inches in Flexi, 333 feet. That's, size of a building. And there's actually been people who have wrapped buildings using Flexi. Illustrator is limited, and you'd have to go through a lot of steps to overcome that limitation in design size. Output of designs, very important. Illustrator files can be opened directly in Flexi. You can even open an Illustrator file right in Production Manager. Let me show you that. This is what Production Manager looks like. So you can have multiple printers up here. And if I want to add a job in here, I just go to File and Add Job. And look at all the file formats here. I can actually open an Illustrator file, a Adobe PDF file, a Photoshop file. So if you're using the Adobe suites, you can open up files directly in Production Manager. Just add it to Production Manager if you don't want to have to manipulate it or use it in Flexi. So you actually get a second program, a RIP software that can be used right with Illustrator if you want. You're stuck on Illustrator. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. In Illustrator, you got to purchase that software. It's going to be Onyx. There's going to be some other program out there. Maybe VersaWorks. It comes with Roland printers, or Photo Print, DX. It comes with Muto printers. A lot of other programs out there, but why do that? It's just a simpler workflow. As I mentioned earlier, drivers and cutters for prints and cutters, it's Flexi all the way. I mean, Flexi comes with all these drivers. I mean, let's go back to our Photoshop here, and let's just go to, Production Manager, and let's add a setup. And I just want to show you here, I'm going to look at color printers. Look at all the manufacturing names here. I mean, this is pretty much everybody in the market. Some of these I've never heard of, which means, if you're buying from a company that's making a new one or has legacy printers and so forth. I'll give you a good example here. Let's go to Muto, right? And then let's go. Here's all the old stuff. You find something on eBay, you're going to be able to run it in Flexi. Or you want the brand new stuff is all included right here. The guys at SAI are constantly working on drivers and profiles for all the machines out there. So you're not going to be left in the dark here, right? In Illustrator, again, you got to buy that cut or print software. No guarantee it has the drivers and profiles. That's all I'm going to say about that. Printer profiles, as I mentioned, mega profiles in here. We'll go back again to our Production Manager to show you this. Here's the Muto, right? I'm just going to go to default job settings over here, and I'm going to click on a tab that does color management. I just want to show you this as an example, right? If I use color correction, look at all the profiles that are included here. 3M, Arlon, Avery, Orcal, the guys ValueJet. I mean, there's all kinds of, you can even add your own. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer there, I think. And then finally, subscribe or not. Choose Flexi. Flexi gives you a choice. You can buy the software outright if that's your desire. You can upgrade. If you've bought an older version, 7, 8, 10, you can upgrade it to version 11 or 12 or whatever comes out. Or you can subscribe. It's your choice. It's your choice. You can do any of those things. In Illustrator, you only have one choice. It's subscription, guys. And there is no choice. Why not go with something that gives you a choice and use it as the way that you want? So I ask you the question, when should you use Flexi versus Illustrator? The answer is, it's all about workflow. Flexi outperforms Illustrator every single time when it comes to workflow. I'm going to ask you just one more thing. You decide. Just ask yourself, what's more important, a design feature or a completed project from beginning to end where you make your money? You decide.